Hi everyone, welcome to the Introduction to EBSCOhost webinar. My name is Linda Kobashigawa and I'm a librarian here at Fresno City College. So what this webinar is going to be is of course an introduction to EBSCOhost, an overview of what EBSCOhost is, how to search effectively in it, and then I'll do a quick demo for you at the end. So first of all, what is EBSCOhost? We've heard that name quite a bit. We know it's where you can find some things for research, but what exactly is it? So EBSCOhost is basically a collection of databases that index articles. So when you think about how Google indexes websites and web pages online, EBSCO does the same thing except with articles. So these collections can be multi-subject, they can be subject specific, and they can be format specific. So I want you to think about the image that you see on the right hand of a giant library that has a bunch of different collections inside. Maybe even has different rooms that house those different collections. And so maybe one of those rooms, one of those collections is multi-subject. So like the database we're going to look at today, it's got a lot of different types of materials in it, and those all cover different subject areas. So you can find information about almost anything in this particular collection. Can be subject specific, so they can focus on a specific topic and only on that topic. So there might be a collection of law materials, there might be a collection that just talks about psychology or just art, things like that. And then there are format specific collections. So we might have databases that only have things like newspaper articles, or they only have peer-reviewed journal articles in them, or some of them only have other types of media like streaming audio or streaming video. So that's what we mean when we say format specific. So this next slide, continuation of what's in EBSCOhost, this is a very busy chart, but what I want you to pay attention to the most is the column on the left-hand side. So this is basically just telling you again what you're going to find in EBSCOhost, which is to say that you're going to find a lot of different types of articles. The most important ones, the ones that students actually look for the most often, and that makes up a large percentage of the types of articles in EBSCOhost, are the top scholarly peer-reviewed articles. So if you have an instructor who tells you you need to have at least 2 peer-reviewed sources, academic or scholarly articles in your research project, EBSCO is a good place to look, because that is most of the articles in EBSCO will be peer-reviewed or published in peer-reviewed journals. There are also articles from trade magazines. So these are a little different from peer-reviewed articles because they haven't gone through that extra evaluative process of going through peer review, but they are still good sources. Trade magazine articles are usually written by practitioners in a specific field for other practitioners in that field. And so they're usually very practical, but they're good resources to get information about current trends and other things for a specific profession. And then there are also popular magazine articles as well as newspaper articles in EBSCOhost. So now that we know what's in EBSCO, how do we find it? So that's where search tips comes in. So I have 3 search tips that I give to literally every student who I help use EBSCOhost with. And these I came up with based on what students ask the most often about searching, and some of the most common mistakes that students face when they go into the databases to search. So the first tip I have is only use your most important words. And this seems pretty self-explanatory, pretty obvious, but when we think about the way we search in our everyday lives, we use a lot of natural language when we talk to Siri or Alexa, when we just type in a search query into Google or Bing. we're not really thinking too much about how we phrase it. It's just how we think of the question. So we use a lot of natural language, a lot of full sentences, question marks and punctuation, and contractions and acronyms, all kinds of things like that. Well, the databases are really specific, and you don't want to search the same way you would search in a regular search engine. So an example would be when you're thinking about your thesis statement or your research questions, we usually phrase those in full sentences, right? So for example, if my research question was something like, what are the mental health impacts of social media use on teenagers? I want to look at that sentence and just pull out the words that have the most meaning, the ones that are going to give me the best results in a search. And so I can go through this sentence and cross out all of those words that really don't have very much meaning towards my topic, that wouldn't give me very good results. And I come up with 3 concepts from the sentence: mental health, social media, and teenagers. Those are the most important things. When I do a search, I want to find those terms, those concepts in every single one of my results. I don't really care about the other words in there. So you want to look through any outlines, any brainstorming you've done, any drafts that you've written, and pull out those most important terms and keep those for searching, and only those for searching. The next tip is using synonyms and related words. So that's not to say that using Google and all of these outside resources outside of our databases aren't helpful. They really are. Even when you go to a source like Wikipedia, it is essentially an encyclopedia, and encyclopedias are really good places for background research. And when I say background research, I mean getting a definition and understanding your topic, and thinking about vocabulary surrounding your topic. So like I said, Google and encyclopedias are really good for this. Looking at Wikipedia and see also references within that, and the way it describes different concepts related to the topic entry that you're looking at. That's a good place to start building your vocabulary around the topic, because we know, especially with controversial issues, there's a lot of different ways to describe them, and we might not always think of those other ways. And so an example would be something like teenagers. That's a pretty obvious term, but when you think about it, there are different ways to describe that particular age group. We can call them adolescents. We can also call them young adults. We can also call them juveniles. There's many synonyms for that particular group, and so you want to think of the different ways that you can describe it, because that will give you different results. And then going along with different vocabulary and different ways to describe something are also subject terms. So subject terms are really important in databases, especially in a database like EBSCOhost, because they basically, every article included in EBSCOhost or indexed in EBSCOhost is given subject terms, and those subject terms are part of what's called a controlled vocabulary. So they are terms that have been selected by subject experts or researchers in that field and librarians, and they've decided this is the best term to use to describe this particular concept. So they also describe exactly what the article is about. They're really useful to determine how relevant an article is to your topic. So an example of that would be vaping and electronic cigarettes. So vaping is the common term that we use. We hear it in the news all the time, and just everywhere in general, vaping shops and vaping devices and all of those in all of those contexts. But actually in the database, they've determined that electronic cigarettes is the best way to describe any smokeless cigarette device, which is essentially what a vaporizing device is. So if you search electronic cigarettes in the database, you should get every article that talks about vaping, whether or not it actually uses that term, because all of those articles should have been tagged with the subject term electronic cigarettes. And so with those tips in mind, we are going to go in and search EBSCOhost. So the way you get to EBSCOhost, and you do have to have a subscription to EBSCOhost, which of course the Fresno City College Library does. And that means though that you have to access the database through the library. That's the way it authenticates you. So go to Fresno City College's website. Our link is right up top, whatever page on the website you're on. We are right between athletics and my portal. And then once you get to our web page, you would scroll down. Give it a second to load. You would scroll down past all this information until you get to a section titled Research. Next is titled Research Databases. EBSCOhost is one of our most popular. It's usually the one instructors send their students to use, and it's probably one of our biggest databases. So we just have a link directly to it on the web page. You can also go down to browse all research databases to look for databases like based on subject and other things. But we're going to click directly into EBSCOhost because that's what this webinar is for. And then of course, because we are all off campus, you will be prompted to sign in with your My Portal username and password. And once you do that, you have full access to all of our electronic resources, not just EBSCOhost. And then we're going to give that a couple seconds to load as well. And so there's two things before we actually even begin our searches that I want to point out. And so the first one is up top, it'll say you are searching, and then in bold, that's the name of the actual database. So remember I talked about collections within this giant library. So Academic Search Complete is one of those collections, and it is multidisciplinary. So you should be able to find an article about almost any topic under the sun in Academic Search Complete. But if you do have a specific topic that you're focusing on or subject area that you're focusing on, the second thing I want to show you is this Choose Databases link. So if you click on that, it's going to load up a lot of the other collections that are included in EBSCOhost. So as I mentioned again earlier, some of these are subject specific. So there is a psychology and behavioral sciences collection, which actually based on the topic that I'm using for this example, which is social media use and mental health and teenagers, psychology, behavioral sciences collection might be a really useful collection for me to search. So I'm going to check that box so I can search this collection as well as this multidisciplinary collection. If you're ever not sure what's included in a collection, you can hover over that little info bubble and it'll give you information about the subjects that it covers, how many journals or how many articles are covered in there too. And searching these databases or these different collections, it just really depends on whatever your topic is. If you are focusing on health or environment or science, something in the STEM fields, you would just choose the database collection based on whatever topic you're focusing on. But if you stick with just this multidisciplinary one, Academic Search Complete, that's totally fine too. You can search as many databases at a time as you want or just one at a time. It really is dependent on you and your topic. So we're gonna add those two to our search. And now when I go up and show all, it's telling me I'm searching both of these database collections, which is great. And so now I can start putting in my search terms. So I'm gonna going back to my, my example. I'm doing social media, I'm doing teenagers. Oops, I gotta spell that right. And I am doing mental health. And so the first thing I want to show you is what's called Boolean operators. If you are a math major or aficionado, you are probably familiar with the Boolean logic, but we use these database and search engines use Boolean logic, and that's what these drop-down menus over here on the left-hand side of those search bars are. And most databases and search engines default to and, so you don't necessarily need to put those in between your search terms because that's the default function for the database. And that's just telling the database, I want to search for articles that say social media and teenagers and mental health. It has to say all three of these, every single article in my result list. And of course, focuses and narrows your search topic because you're including, you're saying I want all of these terms included in every single one of my searches. So we're seeing now that 202 articles that we're getting in our results list should include all three of these terms. The other Boolean operator that I want to show you is the not operator. So for instance, say in my search results, I seem to be getting a lot of articles that, yeah, they're about social media and they talk about teenagers and mental health, but they're also talking a lot about bullying. And maybe that's not really the focus I want to take. And so if I find I'm getting too many results, I can add a row and type in Boolean in here, drop down right before Boolean to not. And that's going to tell the database, yes, I want all of these where the and is next to it, but I want you to exclude not. I don't want, or exclude bullying. I don't want any articles that say bullying. So we're going to do a search, and not narrows your search terms because it's excluding this term wherever it shows up. So we have 232 results right now. My result list went down to 194. So it took out those about 40-ish results that that talked about bullying as well. And then the last operator that I want to talk about is or. So you saw three of them in this drop-down menu. Or is one that expands it, and we usually use it when we have things like synonyms. And so we have things like teenagers or adolescents, because we know there might be a lot of articles, some articles that will call teenagers adolescents as opposed to teenagers. And same thing with some of these other terms. First, just so I could show you how broad the results get. So we have 194 now with just teenagers, but I added the or adolescents, and our result list jumped to 410. So it jumped quite a bit, and that's because now we're looking for articles that talk about social media, that talk about mental health, not bullying, but they also talk about those in the context of teenagers or adolescents, or it uses both of those terms. Most likely, if it uses one term, it's probably not going to use the other term. It's going to be consistent throughout that article, and so now we're getting articles that actually say adolescents, quite a bit that actually say adolescents. There are also some that say teens and teenagers, or say both. So you can broaden your search with that or Boolean operator. And so now that we're looking through some of these topics, I'm seeing that there's a lot of academic journal articles, but there are also some that say periodical. So you'll notice these little icons on the left-hand side. This one's an academic journal. This one's also academic, but this one's periodical. And that just tells you that that is a magazine article. So it's not a peer-reviewed article. So if you do want a peer-reviewed article, EBSCO makes it really easy for you on the left-hand side to refine your results, so you don't have to keep adding in search terms or playing around with Boolean logic. If you feel like you have good search terms, you can narrow your search in a different way. So you can narrow it by format again. So there's a link over here, a checkbox over here that says scholarly peer-reviewed journals. If I check that, it is going to filter out everything that is not. And so that kind of saves you some time if you're just looking for that type of article. And we'll let that upload. Okay, so now everything in my result list should be an academic journal article. You can also limit by publication date over on that same side right below that scholarly peer-reviewed journals. You can drag this here, or just type in the date. If you want to do last 10 years or 5 years or so, you can fix that. Also, an important thing to look at are the subject thesaurus terms. So these are really actually useful, because let me hit the show more, because they show you the most used subject terms in the articles that are in your results list. So, and it shows you how many, 110 of these articles have a subject term or a subject tag of social networks, social media, adolescence, social support, mental depression, and some of these other terms as well. And this is a good place too to look for additional terminology that might work for your searches that maybe you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And actually, let me close out of here. I'm not going to select any of those, but when we're looking at our results list, you can look at the subject terms that are included with under each of these articles. So the subject terms, again, describe what the article is about, and they might use different terms than you were using. So they're good places to just kind of scan as you're going through your results list, just to see if there are other terms that you can use to search. And so I'm scrolling through some of these. I did notice that in actually the subject thesaurus terms, there was one that was a little more specific than mental health. It was looking at a specific type of disorder, which was depression. This one's looking at anxiety. So maybe if you feel like you're getting too many results, or your results are not specific enough, you can take some of those terms and just key them in. So instead of mental health, I want to search mental depression. And I should get updated results. It's kind of lagging on me today. Alrighty. So that narrowed our results just a little bit, but now I'm seeing more articles that I feel like are more related to my specific topic and the search terms that I'm using. So this one's looking at, mental depression is a subject term here, social networks and social media, teenagers, adolescents, those are all subject terms for that particular article. Same thing with this one here. So these might be some are going to be useful to me. This one seems pretty good as well. And then you can always check to see, when it was published, 2016. So it's variant, where it was published in, which is Depression and Anxiety, that journal, and then looking at some of the other subject terms in there. So if you ever want to read a little further into the article, you can look at the abstract. Every article in EBSCOhost should have an abstract, and you can hover over this little magnifying glass, and this bubble will pop up, and if you scroll down within that bubble, you can read most or all of the abstract. And that should give you enough information to say whether or not it's one you want to investigate further. And so if it is, you can go directly to the PDF full text. And so again, all of these articles provide the full text, usually in a PDF format. And you can read the PDF directly in EBSCOhost. Different ways to get the article if you want to save it, if you want to cite it, all of that's available. So you can read it directly here on this page. It's just in a PDF viewer. This is the entire article. You can download it. So if you're your own device, which many of us are, can just download it and save it onto your desktop or whatever folder you're using. You can also save it in your Google Drive. You can print it out. You can email it to yourself. And you can also cite it. So let me show you the email option because I really like that one. I find it useful, especially when you find multiple articles. You can email multiple articles to yourself. And so when you send the email, you can check citation format over here and also send the citation to yourself in the style that you need it in. So it has MLA and APA, those are the most popular, but it also has Chicago and some other ones. So if you're using those, you can select those and it will send you that formatted citation as well as the full text of the article in one email. Now, if you already have your citation, your works cited list up, and you're just ready to copy and paste the citation in, go to the Cite button on the right-hand side and find the citation in the format that you need it in. You can just highlight it and decide to copy it and then paste it into your works cited list. You are going to have to do some formatting because they're not 100% correct. If you look up here, you have some, there's a disclaimer about personal names, capitalization, and dates. And I would also say things like punctuation and italics also have some issues. MLA is usually okay. APA, there are more issues than MLA, but you always want to check it no matter what style you're using because again, they are not 100% correct. And another thing I do want to show you is if you're who wants you to include a link back to this article just so they can check it, you can get the link down here in that same list where you could email and get the citation. The bottom link, if you hover over it, it's called a permalink, and that is the link that will take you directly back to this article. So you always want to get that permalink from EBSCOhost. You don't want to use this link up here in your browser because that will not work. You have to use the permalink because it authenticates you as a Fresno City College user for our subscription. And so just remember, always use that permalink in EBSCOhost. Okay, so that was just a really brief introduction to how to search. There's one more thing I do want to show you in EBSCO. If you do have questions while you are performing some of the searches and you know, you're not sure where to go from there, there is an option called Ask a Librarian, and it's available on this results page, and it's up top right next to Help. So Ask a Librarian is different from Help. Help is directly through EBSCOhost, and it'll give you some information just about the database in general. If you go to Ask a Librarian, this is for you to get in contact with the librarians at Fresno City College. And so when you click on Ask a Librarian, it's going to ask you for some information. Give us your name, a good email address, you can add in a question or, you know, some clarification on what your topic is or what you're actually looking for. But what's nice about this service is that it saves your search history. So we can look at this and say, okay, well, the limiters you're using might not be the best, or, you know, this is why you're getting a lot of results. And so we can give you, based on your search history, some suggestions on how to do better searches or search terms and things like that. So that is a good service. We'll get back to you usually within 24 hours that you send this in, and just make sure if you ever do use this service to do it in the same session that you've been doing searches in, so that we do get your search history and we can look through it, because that really helps us in giving you suggestions. Okay. So I want to thank you for attending. Again, my name is Linda Kobashigawa. This is my email address right down here. So if you do need some verification that you attended this webinar, please send me a message. You can do it in the chat or you can email me with your full name, your class name and number, and your instructor's name. And if you do want further help for accessing any of our electronic resources, please visit our off-campus guide. There's a link down here to it, and that gives you links and information on how to get electronic access to our materials and remote help from the librarians.